Great. How are you?
All right, thank you.
See ya.
All right, we're good.
We're good.
All right, everybody. I'd like to call this March 28th meeting of the City Council of Charleston to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Gregg, Councilmember Shealy,
Here.
Councilmember Saccharin, Councilmember Mitchell, Councilmember Brady,
Present.
Councilmember Gregory, Councilmember Waring, Councilmember Seekings, Councilmember Shade, Councilmember Bowden, Councilmember Appel, Councilmember Parker, Mayor Tecklenburg.
Here. And now if y'all would like to join us, Councilmember Waring will lead us in a invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Piggybacking on what Councilmember Bowden said about the tragedy that took place recently down in Nashville, and picking up on what the mayor said at our last real estate and public works meeting. My heart kind of fell on children and wondered what does the Bible say about children? Let us pray. Children are precious, a precious gift of God. As adults, we have the privilege and responsibility to care for them. Pray for all children, protection and safety, and help children around us live a full and abundant life that God desires for them. Proverbs says, 31:8-9, open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are dilute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and the needy. With these words, we ask for special prayers for those families, those children. Keep them in your embrace. And we pray that this does not become the new normal. Let us take the action steps to do what is righteous. These prayers we offer in your name. Let us all say, amen.
Amen. Well, thank you all very much. We're going to start with a few presentations and recognitions. I do see that council members, it looks like you got your T-shirts for your run across the Cooper River Bridge on Saturday. I'll see you out there. I don't know that I'll be running. First up is a proclamation recognizing Ernestine C. Fellers. And this was requested by council members Shade and Parker. And I'm going to ask Ms. Fellers, who's 99 years old, everyone, and she recently retired after 45 years of service with the city of Charleston. Ms. Ernestine, would you please come forward, and council members Shade and Parker join us, and along with Jennifer Cook, Meg Mohan, who's our records management, which is where Ms. Ernestine worked for many years, and Susan Welch, who also worked in that department. She was a former records manager. And we have a proclamation for her, but for our proclamations tonight, y'all, if y'all don't mind, I'm getting a little hoarse. I got a head cold or something. So I'm asking our clerk of council, Jennifer Cook, to read this proclamation for us this evening.
Whereas Ernestine C. Fellers was born on October 8th, 1923, and was raised on Wadmalaw Island. And whereas Ernestine C. Fellers has been a devoted and tireless city employee with the Records Management Division, previously known as City Archives and Records Division, since 1978. And whereas Ernestine is a treasure trove of knowledge regarding Charleston, including the livability, history, and city government. And whereas Ernestine's uplifting energy, lasting memory, and enduring love for Charleston have made her a treasured asset to her division and the city as a whole. And whereas Ernestine is a proud mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. And whereas Ernestine has been a member of the Edisto Island Presbyterian Church and an active member of various civic organizations, including First Families of South Carolina, Daughters of the American Colonists, Daughters of the American Revolution, and the National Society of the Colonial Dames in the state of South Carolina. And whereas during a long and productive lifetime, Ernestine C. Fellers has demonstrated in countless ways her dedication to the welfare of others and has earned the respect and affection of people from all walks of life and all ages. And whereas Ernestine has officially retired from the city at the age of 99, having worked for the city for 45 years. And this last sentence is yours.
Now therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, March 28th, 2023. It's Ernestine Fellers Day in the city of Charleston. Wow. Thank you for your service. And Ms. Ernestine, we would love for you to say a few words, but first we have a little presentation for you. Meg, you have a special announcement, I understand.
When I started with the city almost 10 years ago, I entered a warehouse space out on Savannah Highway that was full to the brim with boxes, and I had no idea how I was going to make my way. And from that day until to this day, Ernestine has been my guide through records management. Her knowledge of the history of Charleston it surpasses anything I know. She can recall anything about history from the time that she was born, practically. And for the time that I've been with the city, Ernestine has been working on something that we call the general collection, which was sort of a vertical files collection of city records, newspaper clippings. Some might call it odds and ends, but it really is sort of our Google or our encyclopedia. It's a guide path to a lot of what we have in records. And to us in records, the name general collections just didn't do it justice. And so in December, when Ernestine retired, we in records renamed the collection the Ernestine Fellers City Reference Collection, and we're going to frame it and put it on a plaque in records management. It just imbues her spirit and her love for the city. Thank you.
Jennifer?
And we have one more presentation. Since you have been working for the city for 45 years, we have all of the city pins framed for you with your 45-year pin in the middle. So congratulations.
Ernestine, would you like to make a remark?
You shouldn't have given me the mic because I don't know when to shut up. But I first would like to thank Peter and Caroline, and I'm old enough to call you all that, because I've got my two great grandsons just turned 23 and 24 this last week. Anyway, the only thing I want to tell you is I have been blessed. This was my second job. I'd already put in 20 years with Sears when we moved from Calhoun Street to Northwoods Mall. And I was in the credit department for over 20 years there, and came home and thought I really retired, lost my husband. And when the time came to go back to work, I said, never again in credit. I want to go back in history, which I dearly loved. And I was born in this city, and you all don't even know about it. but on the corner of B and Ashley was cousin George S. Legree's home. And he was going to give it, and did later, for a home for widowed Episcopal ladies. But in the meantime, they were building Thompson Memorial Hospital Maternity, and they nicknamed it Riverside, which was the old Roper. But I had to be born somewhere, and cousin George said that's going to be the maternity hospital till Thompson Memorial is finished. So I have been here, and I never wanted to leave it, because for those of you, I feel sure most of you in this room know, if you ever smell pluff mud at low tide, you love Charleston. But the one thing I will like to tell you, history has always been it. I will tell you one more thing that really I don't have to, but I am proud of. My Captain Joseph Bailey came in on the Carolina with later Governor Joseph Westwood, and we think he was a cousin. Children were named for his family, but you don't claim them if you can't prove it. But they came in, circled Eddystone, and they landed at what some call Albemarle, but it's Charlestown Landing. And he got his first lot there, but he was sent to Florida. I'm trying to remember the name right now, because this is off the top of my head and back at brain. He was sent there for one of our persons in this city that were in jail there, and he went to jail for them and died there. But Captain Joseph Bailey, we descend from him, and directly with the Bailey man, and my mother had the Bailey name, and I had the middle Bailey name, but we go right back to that man. And so that makes me feel so much closer with a lot of others for the city. But I was fortunate with this job, and go hush, but that when I came to work, we worked for CETA, $6,000 a year. How many of y'all think you're poor? How many of y'all think you don't have enough salary? But we gave it to this city. Just came to work. I'd already left Sears, and Marie Ferrara, later Hollins, she was fresh out of the College of Charleston and was getting her master's in Columbia on weekends. And that young woman put this together by the state, and that's how we started it. But anyway, I love history. Everything I did was for the city. And as Meg said, what I call little social files and all the little stuff that wasn't municipal is what she's referring to, that it has made a nice collection. Anyway, I was allowed to come to the CETA job, and I did so well, they looked for a microfilmer, and they didn't have one. And I said, and I love that man too. And I said, I can microfilm. Oh Lord, we'd have thought we got 3 more people. But anyway, it was the history that kept me. And this is why I was here, but I still feel like I am. But the thing about it was, when you're working in a place where you were born and you create one of the oldest cities and doing that, you're just blessed. So my blessing was that I got to come to work every day to a place that I loved dearly, and everything I did for the city. And thank you.
So Councilmember Parker and I attended the January Employee Appreciation Breakfast at Joe Riley Park. And I was sitting next to Chief Courier when they were handing out awards and announced Ernestine's tenure. And I had to adjust my hearing aids because I thought I heard that she was going to be 100 years old and 45 years service to the city. And I wanted to meet this incredible woman, and both Caroline Parker and I went up there and talked to her, and we heard her, and her mind is as sharp as a tack. So Ernestine, I just want you to keep this in mind. We just commemorated the 350th settlement of Charleston. So you are 1/3 as old as the city. She's an incredible woman and a true treasure. And I thought that with the help of our wonderful clerk, that we needed to do something to recognize 45 years of public service to the city of Charleston. That's an incredible feat. And we can only say thank you for your continual loyalty and dedication in public service. Thank you so much.
Well, that was a delight, y'all. Next up, we have a Holocaust Remembrance Proclamation. And I would like to invite the members of the Charleston Jewish Federation to please come forward, along with Councilmember Ross Appel, who I've asked to read the proclamation today. We have Natanya Miller with the Federation. And I think we also have, is this Carla?
Yes, it is.
Carla Cook is Joe Engel's cousin. And I know if Joe were still with us, he would be with us here this evening on this podium. Councilmember Appel.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for everyone from the community for coming out this evening. Whereas the Holocaust was the state-sponsored systemic persecution and annihilation of European Jewry by Nazi Germany and its collaborators between 1933 and 1945. And whereas we remember with sadness the 11 million people, including 6 million Jews, who were victims of Hitler's final solution, along with those who were persecuted for their religious and political beliefs, sexual orientation, and physical disabilities. And whereas we remember with admiration the resistors and rescuers, known and unknown, who risked and lost their lives to save others. And whereas we remember with respect the survivors who escaped, were sheltered, or who were freed, and who lived to contribute so much to our community and to our world. And whereas the history of the Holocaust offers an opportunity to reflect on the moral responsibilities of individual societies and governments. And whereas we have an obligation to ensure that the memory and legacy of lives lost are forever changed in this horrific event are never forgotten. And whereas we remember and honor the liberators of the World War II concentration camps 78 years ago, and whereas I encourage all citizens to remember and honor the victims, our Holocaust survivors and liberators during the community-wide Yom HaShoah Holocaust Remembrance Program, which will be held at the Gaillard Center on April 23rd. This year's theme is Through Their Voices, Stories of Survival Carried On from Generation to Generation, and will display the importance of action through generational remembrance. And Mayor, take it away.
Now therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, on behalf of City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of April 7th through the 17th through the 23rd to be the week of remembrance in memory of the victims, survivors, rescuers, and liberators of the Holocaust. Thank you so much for being with us. And Natanya, would you like to say a few words?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Natanya Miller, and I'm the Director of Educational Initiatives at the Charleston Jewish Federation. Tonight, I come to you as the granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor and as one of the professional team members for the Remember program, which consists of Holocaust survivors, their descendants, educators, and community members, many of whom are here with us tonight. The Remember program for Holocaust education and genocide awareness educates and builds community among all races, faiths, and ethnicities in Charleston and inspires citizens to stand against hate, bias, and anti-Semitism. As Ross said, we would love to invite all of you to join us on Sunday, April 23rd at the Gaillard for this year's Yom HaShoah commemoration at 2 p.m. Thank you all for committing to Holocaust education and awareness as a community. And Fred, who is our chair, is going to be talking about the candles.
Good evening. I'm Fred Volkman, and I'm the chair of the Remember Committee. And I think most people have the yellow candles at your table side. The yellow candle was created to keep alive the memory of the 6 million who perished in the Shoah. The candle is modeled after a traditional Jewish memorial yahrzeit candle that burns for 24 hours during the periods of mourning and on the yahrzeit anniversary of a family member. The candle's yellow wax reminds us of the yellow armband that the Jews were forced to wear during the Nazi regime. As we light this yellow candle, we vow never to forget the lives of Jewish men, women, and children symbolized by this flame.
We have special dispensation from Chief Courier to light our candles here this evening.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all.
Thank you all for being with us this evening. We look forward to seeing you on the
Yes, thank
23rd.
you.
Yeah, thank you, Fred. Thank you, council member.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Tanya. See,
Is that this?
yeah, I think that's a copy. This is the original here. Great. And then lastly, we have a proclamation recognizing AmeriCorps Week. I'd like to invite Mindy Sturm from our staff and a Vista leader, Louis Boria, to join us, and also Councilman Saccharin. And we have one other guest, and I'm going to let either Louis or Mindy introduce her in a minute. Councilmember Saccharin will read this proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yep.
Whereas service is a hallmark of the American character and has the unique ability to bring people of all backgrounds together in common cause. And throughout our history, citizens have stepped up to meet our most pressing challenges of the day by volunteering in their communities. And whereas AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps Seniors Program provide opportunities to more than 200,000 Americans to serve their country through service at nonprofits, schools, public agencies, and community and faith-based groups across our country. Whereas in Charleston, South Carolina, more than 65 AmeriCorps members and AmeriCorps senior volunteers of diverse ages and backgrounds are helping to meet local needs by tutoring, mentoring children and youth, providing financial literacy services and resources, combating homelessness, building sustainability and resilience, providing mentoring supports, and more. And whereas AmeriCorps members and AmeriCorps senior volunteers encourage collaboration and partnerships, leveraging millions of volunteers in service and acquiring the support of businesses, foundations, and other local partners to increase the effectiveness of their initiatives. And whereas AmeriCorps members and AmeriCorps senior volunteers demonstrate commitment, dedication, and patriotism by making intensive commitment to service, a commitment that remains with them in their future endeavors. Whereas through their service, AmeriCorps members and AmeriCorps senior volunteers strengthen the lives of their families, communities, and South Carolina as a whole. And whereas national service represents a unique public-private partnership that invests in community solutions and leverages non-federal resources to strengthen community impact and increase the return on taxpayer dollars. And whereas AmeriCorps Week is an opportunity to recognize the dedication and commitment of more than 1.2 million Americans who have chosen to serve their country through AmeriCorps, and millions more who have served AmeriCorps seniors and their community partners, and to encourage more Americans to follow in their footsteps in service.
Now therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, do hereby proclaim March 12th through the 18th as AmeriCorps Week in the City of Charleston. Thank you all for your service, and we'll ask Louis if you'd like to come forward and make a few remarks.
Dear council members,
Would you introduce
Yeah, Mayor.
this young lady?
she's with Trident United Way.
Okay.
Christine Rudolph. It was my first day meeting her, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Dear council members, honored guests, mayor. My name is Luis Boria. I'm the AmeriCorps Vista leader, working with Mindy over at the Mayor's Office for Children, Youth, and Families. Thanks to this body and the many dedicated employees throughout the city of Charleston, we've been able to have AmeriCorps program here with the city for the past 13 years. Because of this AmeriCorps City of Charleston partnership, we have strengthening organizations in service to veterans, pediatric cancer patients, school teachers, victims of sexual trafficking, first-time business owners, and low-income families. We could not do this work that's much needed and important in our city without your support. So on behalf of the partners, beneficiaries, and AmeriCorps members, thank you for the opportunity to serve the Charleston community. Thank you for this honor today, and thank you for the ongoing commitment to fight poverty in our city.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So Mindy, did you want to add anything?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, you're good. So I'll add a quick thing, because this has been going on, y'all, in the city of Charleston since 2010. And Mindy compiled just a few quick facts. Since that time, see, we administer the program in our region, and Mindy does a terrific job doing that. So since that time, we've employed in a way, 262 AmeriCorps Vista members right in the Charleston community. And that has equated, I guess Mindy's kept track of every hour, 372,320 volunteer hours of service to the Charleston community at a value of $8.8 million, involving 45 different sites. So every year we advertise who would be interested in receiving a year's service from a Vista AmeriCorps member, and they get awarded the organization. So I won't name them all, but there's 40. You were thankful for Charleston School District being one, but everything from Kids on Point to Metanoia to Our Lady of Mercy Community Outreach to Low Country Food Bank to Reading Partners South Carolina to the city to many different City of Charleston initiatives. Y'all have helped us serve this community, and we really thank you for it. It's really a great program. How about another hand for AmeriCorps? Thank you. All right, next.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
May I just make a couple of comments? First of all, I want to say hi to Christy. I used to sit in front of her at Try to Eat United Way. But I want to thank all the AmeriCorps members for their service. I was an AmeriCorps member when I did Teach for America on the west side of Atlanta many moons ago. But I just want to, for everyone's edification, that doesn't know what AmeriCorps is, it's basically like a domestic Peace Corps. So we send young people out into communities across the United States, both urban and rural, in order to help work on issues and in areas that otherwise may not get the support that they otherwise would. And AmeriCorps members receive a stipend, but they really are sacrificing for a year or 2 years that they're in the program, living at a very low income level, and it kind of reflects the people that they serve as well. So I would encourage anyone, whether they're just coming out of college or are in high school and want to do something in between high school and college, which is fairly common in Europe, but not as common in the United States, to look at AmeriCorps as a way to give back to your community, to give back to the country in a manner that's meaningful and that people really want to see happen in their community. So on behalf of myself as AmeriCorps alumni, I want to thank all AmeriCorps alumni and those active in the current group of both Vistas and all the other programs for their service, not only to Charleston, but to the United States of America. So thank you all.
Thank you. So next up, we have just a few public hearings this evening. I think we have 4 matters. Mr. Morgan from the Planning Department will present them, and then we'll call upon members of the public if you would like to make comments on these specific
Mr.
items.
Mayor, can we take 1 through 4 together?
Let's see, we need to take 3 separately because we're not going to vote on number 3 until the annexation gets approved under second readings.
So I would have been then that we take 1, 2, and 4 together.
Okay, we can take 1,
Second.
2, and 4 together. Does that suit everybody? Without objection, we'll do that. All right, Mr. Morgan, you want to go ahead and present 1, 2, and 4?
I think we have the PowerPoint from last month. We need this month's PowerPoint. Perfect. All right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Okay. Number 1 is 39 Riverdale. It's a recent annexation into the city from January of this year. The zoning recommended for the site would be SR1 in the city. And we have an image of it, of the property right here for you. It's in the midst of properties that were in Charleston County that were zoned R4, and SR1 is the most compatible city district to bring in properties that were R4 in the county. And we're going to take these together. Is that correct? Okay. So I'm going to zip on through. These are just, we always have our comp plan recommendations, suburban in this location. So that's in line with that. Let's see if we can, it's not wanting to advance on me. It's got a little message in the corner here. I think needs to be X'd out. Thank you. Huh. Still not getting it to advance. Sorry, here we go. Here we go. Okay. Then we go to the next one is 480 Magnolia. This was also annexed in January of this year, and this is also coming into the city as SR1, and it's also in the midst of other R4 from Charleston County zoning. We just have our comp plan. It's in line with comp plan, and just an image of the property. And Planning Commission did recommend for this as well. And are we skipping number 3 for the moment? Okay. Okay. So I will skip over that. And then we've got, this is 155 Meeting Street, and there's several different requests on the site. So I'll kind of go through these, and I'll have a number of images because a big part of height changes in the city is the surrounding context, and that the zoning ordinance requires an analysis of those surrounding contexts to justify height changes. This is the property. It's at the corner of Meeting Street and Hurlbeck Alley. It's the former Days Inn site, and then there's some other parcels to the rear that are currently used as parking areas that would also be part of this rezoning. It's currently zoned general business and it would keep its general business zoning. The requests involve going from our existing accommodations overlay A1 to our accommodations overlay A5, which would allow for up to 150 room hotel on the site, and also changes from our existing 4-story height limits out front and 6-story height limits in the middle of the site to height limits that would involve 3 stories on the northeastern corner, 5 stories on the kind of eastern side, all the way down to Hurlbeck, and then 7 stories for the rear of the property. And this is the dividing line between the 7-story and the 5-story here and the 3-story in this location. And then we also have other imagery that shows the property and gives you a little bit better sense of that. I'm going to go kind of quickly through some of these slides. Again, an aerial image of the Days Inn and the parking lots associated with this site. It's in our city center designation in our comprehensive plan. So this is the designation that calls for the greatest heights, the greatest intensities of density in the city. And then it is also, of course, between King and Meeting Street. So that helps justify the extra height request in this location as well. And here's just what City Center explains. And then it also is currently in the accommodations overlay. It would go from the A1 area of the accommodations overlay, which would limit it to 50 rooms. Of course, there were more than 50 rooms. I believe it was about 112 on the site at present as the Days Inn, and it would go up to 150 with this new accommodations use on the site. But it is clearly within the accommodations overlay as shown in this map. And here we have some pictures, the Days Inn site. You see Hurlbeck Alley on the left,
Days in sight. Days in looking down Horlbeck towards Meeting Street, you see how narrow Horlbeck is at present. Of course, as we analyze changes to the Old City Height District, what this section of the zoning ordinance is talking about is that the request to rezone to higher height district shall be evaluated in part on the context of the property, the character of the immediate area, street widths, which is very important, and around the property, and whether the requested zoning will be compatible with surrounding properties. And then also, whenever you're requesting heights above 4 stories, you do have to understand, the applicant needs to understand, and the property would be subject to this, that there would be a 10-foot deep sidewalk on on any side that faces a 4-story or greater building or a 7-story building also. Here's the current conditions on the street. Some of these are images from the applicant, and the applicants are here tonight, and I assume they will speak too, and we can pull these back up as they're speaking, but I'm just going to zip through these as well. What you see in the bottom image is, of course, the Liberty Center, I believe it is, office building that is 6 stories up on Meeting Street, and then has a 7th story in a penthouse area that's a mechanical penthouse, almost an 8th story really back there. And then what you see is the 5-story portion of the Meeting Street site. This would be with this zoning change, and at the corner of Meeting and Horlbeck Alley. Here you see a direct view across Horlbeck Alley that shows that same office building and the 5 stories here, so slightly lower than that area. And of course, you do have Horlbeck Alley, and they would be required to have a 10-foot sidewalk back there. And in fact, that was one of the conditions of, well, that was one of the recommendations of Planning Commission, is that it be a full 10 feet back from the existing property line to accommodate that sidewalk, because right now there really isn't much of a sidewalk on Horlbeck Alley. Here is just an image that would show you, if you backed up the current buildings, you see that yellow line, that gives you a sense of how much the buildings are right up on the edge of Horlbeck and how much extra sidewalk area we would gain from this, just by virtue of basic codes that we operate under for our heights today. This is just a plat of the property. And then again, this is the applicant's requested height districts. And then the applicant has provided these slides. I'm going to zip through these, but if the applicant again wants to go back through them, we can. I believe these are giving some of the context. This just gives you a location of the site again at Horlbeck and Meeting. Some of the other buildings that are in close proximity. And then gives you an aerial overview. And again, you can see that large building to the south with the large penthouse on the top, which I think today we'd probably call definitely a 7th story on that. Here we have 3-story building to the north, and the Days Inn site at present. And the Horlbeck Alley pictures again. And just the context along Meeting Street here, you've got a range of heights from Charleston places, greater heights, to heights down at the Mills House, and then smaller buildings in between, and of course the Liberty Center just to the south of this one. And here's a concept of the layout of the hotel. Again, this is not part of the rezoning at present. It will still have to go through the TRC and the BAR process, and that could change how the hotel is laid out. But the applicants have provided this just to give a sense of how it might operate. And that's the existing zoning massing that is allowed. They would have had 4 stories along the front. Instead, with this rezoning, they would have 5 stories on the southern part of the eastern side, and then 3 stories on the northern end, and then 7 stories in the middle, and then be backed up from Horlbeck Alley 10 feet. Here's just a cross section through there, and it shows what you would be able to see from Meeting Street. Those little dotted lines give you a sense that you really wouldn't be able to see that 7th floor from Meeting Street in most instances, and you definitely would not be able to see it from King Street either. And again, just the applications, the existing height districts here, and the proposed, oops, and then just some of the images. This is King Street from the north looking south. The 2 blocky buildings in the middle are what the heights would allow for in that location. And there you see again the 3-story and 5-story segments fronting out Meeting Street. And again, up a little bit closer and then straight on. That's not really a view anybody would be able to have because it's so far away, but it shows the 5-story and 3-story segments, and 5 and 3, and then Horlbeck Alley. And here's from the south looking north and all the way down Meeting Street. So, and then that is the request, the existing and the proposed.
So Planning Commission reviewed all this. They recommended approval of the accommodations overlay from A1 to A5. And they did recommend approval with a 10-foot setback from the property line on Hurlback for the height district changes from 6 to 7 and from 4 to 5. And then also the segment that goes down to 3. And with that, comes before City Council.
Terrific. All right, would anyone from the public like to comment on those 3 items, one being 39 Riverdale Drive, 480 Magnolia Road, or 155 Meeting Street? Any of those 3 properties, please come forward and we'll have a 2-minute.
And Mr. Mayor, we've had some people who actually signed up to speak on some of the public hearings. Anthony Bryant.
Yeah.
The time is 2 minutes.
All right, Mr. Bryant.
I'm hearing it much more. Because I was at a county council meeting. And the county council member said, Mr. Moody said that, and this is a comprehensive plan, that basically you vote on what specifically is in front of you. I served on the board for years, you don't. You vote on the overall, how this properties fit in the puzzle of the whole city. I want that to be clear in terms of when somebody comes with a general purpose of the whole area. Okay, this is my name, Anthony G. Bryant. Make sure you're clear in terms of this. It's from the IRS that got this back today. So I am Anthony G. Bryant. I'm the guy on Quentin's close-up. That's a pretty cool little thing I did with a young brother. But let's talk in terms of this for a second. The state does not deal with financial hardship. You've got Daniels Island, you've got all these districts, all these areas with all these property values extremely high. When someone comes before a board, they say, well, we can't consider your financial hardship. You can't afford to put this or that or whatever on your property or paint your house a certain way or whatever. I think something should come from the floor in terms of the state saying, we gotta consider financial hardship now. We have no choice because people are being affected by these zonings from a value standpoint. Okay, you don't consider value. They don't say that property's going to be worth after renovations, $5 billion, $5 million, or the Ports Authority worth $38 billion. How's that going to affect the kids on the east side, the housing authority? How's it going to affect their lives, their rent, whatever? So I want you to understand that we need to try to get the state to consider financial hardship, people being affected by these new developments.
Thank you, sir.
Mohammed Idris.
Evening.
Good evening.
When we look at the development of Charleston, as Mr. Anthony Bryan said, there's a great unbalance. Great unbalance. It's not a white and black thing. It's a greed, envy, jealousy, and ignorance. The contribution that the Poe have made to this city is tremendous. And we all would like to live on the Battery. All, black, white, Chinaman, Japanese, the whole works. There's a great injustice in the city of Charleston. And this didn't just start. It started a long time ago. So we're going to be working diligently to show the unbalance. Again, it's not a black and white thing because we got 3 city councilmen who is on the council here and they've been here for a long time, a long time. It's not a male and a female thing. We have female here on city council. It's an unbalanced thing. And the mayor talked about his staff, but we have to remember, Moses' staff turned into a snake. And that's how our first father and mother lost the garden. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sam Spence.
Hello, Council. Sam Spence from the Preservation Society. We opposed this rezoning request for 155 meeting. That's what I'm speaking on now. When it was before Planning Commission in February, we believe in titling this development up to 7, potentially 8 stories on this sensitive site would further challenge a block of the historic district downtown that feels the impacts of misguided large-scale development already, just steps from King Street and a number of other significant 18th and 19th century sites. But this is just the latest in a troubling trend of dramatic upzoning requests like this proposed without any compelling public interest. We have a very serious concern that the repeated approval of height district deviations is changing the character and human scale of this city. Now, upzoning does have its place. Nowadays, you often hear about it with increasing affordable housing density, but Charleston is already experiencing dramatic impacts from increasingly intense tourism-related developments, and this one in the heart of the historic district downtown has the potential to amplify existing livability issues. Furthermore, these piecemeal changes to the zoning map erode the predictability of new growth and development and contributes to the perception that a developer can max out their entitlements, ask for more, and potentially get it. Now, City Council is under no obligation to approve the rezoning requests just because they're requested. And this is a valuable piece of property in Charleston's historic district, and even the most craven, business-minded owners are not simply going to walk away. Now, this project team has been more forthcoming than most, and we sincerely appreciate that. But as public officials, you need to be diligent in weighing whether the public is best served with existing zoning in place or exceptions tailored specifically to expand the developable property in our dense urban landscape. No property owner is entitled to upzoning by right, and we urge you to consider that when considering this proposal at 155 meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
James Wilson.
Thank you. I'm James Wilson with Womble Bond Dickinson here on behalf of the applicant, speaking about 155 Meeting Street. A few quick points I'd like to make. The first is we are asked, there are 2 requests here. One is to change from the A1 to the A5 accommodation zone. Right now, there is a 124 room hotel on the site. We're asking to be allowed to go to 150 rooms. We're adding about 50% additional land to the existing site. That land is already in the A1 zone, allowed for 50 rooms. So we believe that it's expansion of the site going from 124 to 150 is a very reasonable approach. With regard to height, again, we think it's a pretty reasonable balanced request that we're making. Right now, we're zone 4 and 6 stories. We're asking, and right now the first front 50 feet is 4 stories. We're going to basically balance that out so that we have 5 stories for the first 100 feet. Going from 6 to 7 stories at the center of the site, we're setting that back 100 feet from Meeting Street and 125 feet from King Street to make it not visible from most of the streets around us. The northeast corner, we're actually going to take it down from 4 to 3 stories to more appropriately fit with the Meeting Street in. Couple things, we're adding pedestrian open space on the ground level. That's part of what we're doing here is we're trying to balance height with opening up space, a new sidewalk on Hurlbeck, pedestrian way on the rear of the property along the western part of the property, open courtyard, create more connectivity between Meeting and King, which really doesn't exist in this space right now. A couple more things. We do believe this is consistent with the comprehensive plan. As Mr. Morgan said, we're designated city center. It's also consistent with the zoning ordinance, which says height should be on the spine of the city, tapering down to the water. We had unanimous approval from Planning Commission. We've had good meetings with stakeholders. The 2 immediate neighborhoods, French Quarter and Charleston Village, have been supportive. Lastly, we are good with the Planning Commission's request for the 10-foot setback on Hurlbeck. Thank you very much. We're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir.
Stephen Ramos.
Good evening. I'm Stephen Ramos. I'm an architect in Charleston, and I'm also speaking on behalf of the applicant for 155 Meeting Street. Been working with Mr. Wilson and a big group of architects crafting this project. It's a significant project. It is in the heart of the city. We feel like that's the appropriate place to put density and sometimes height. The response that we've developed is crafted to the context. It's not about the existing zoning. Sometimes the existing zoning can be improved, and we think that that is the case for this particular site. We've studied the immediate context as well as the length of Meeting Street, and we feel like lowering the property on Meeting Street, specifically adjacent to the Meeting Street Inn, which is 3 stories, is appropriate, which we were putting forth. At the intersection of Meeting and Hurlbeck, the buildings that exist today are 4 stories, 5 stories, and 6 stories. We're proposing 5 stories. So again, we feel like that is most appropriate. And the additional height that we are requesting of 7 stories in the center of the site, that is also appropriate for this specific site, as well as the Charleston Peninsula as a whole, as we've seen that the zoning map generally reflects that. So we thank you for your time, and thank you for your vote.
Thank you, sir.
And those are all the speakers that we had signed up for those matters.
Would anyone else like to be heard? Please come forward, state your name and address on these 3 properties, 39 Riverdale, 480 Magnolia, or 155 Meeting Street. Yes, sir.
Publics came to speak, the public portion, and I signed up.
Is this for public hearings or citizens participation? That's later in the agenda. Yes. sir.
That's coming up soon. Yes, ma'am. Please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Cashin Drole, Historic Charleston Foundation, speaking on 155 Meeting Street. As Mr. Morgan mentioned, there are a couple of asks within the application. Our position is sort of a hybrid one. We're supportive of the height district change from 4 and 6 on the Meeting Street facing portions of the site to go to 5. We think that makes really great sense. Architecturally, will produce a better building. The change from A1 to A5, we are also supportive of that. We are typically reticent of increasing the accommodations presence on the peninsula, but increasing from 125 to 150 sleeping rooms, we're okay with that as well. What I would want to speak in opposition to would be the height district change from 6 to 7 with the potential to go to 8 with architectural merit. We feel that this is just too much height south of Calhoun Street, particularly this location is south of Market Street. And we think that that would establish a bad precedent to include an 8-story building south of Market Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard on those 3 properties? 139 Riverdale, 480 Magnolia, or 155 Meeting Street? Seeing none, it comes to council. All right, we got a motion to approve all 3. We got a second. We got a second. Any discussion?
Let me ask a question.
Councilmember Seeking.
Well, just briefly, Mr. Mayor, I think it bears commenting on number 3, 155 Meeting Street. You know, if you've been here for a long time and you walk down Meeting Street and you close your eyes, you walk past that site, it is naturally, and in your mind's eye, it's hotel. It has been forever. And 124 rooms were there. I think what's proposed here is consistent with what goes on. And Christopher, can you show the overhead view, the sort of sky view that was put in there by the applicant? If you look down that corridor and you look at Charleston Place coming backwards, it really fits into the skyline pretty well. And I would like to point out, this corridor is a really good example of where the BAR can give us a lot of help. 151 Meeting, which is that building to the south, to the left on this picture, is really, with all due respect, not that one, the brick one, the next one, that one, there you go. That one's pretty rough architecturally. And I think what we're going to see here is something that's much more sensitive to the look of what the core of Charleston should be. I would also point out, I hadn't picked up on this in the presentations that the development team has given to us over the course of this process, but there's 124 rooms there now, and then you've added another piece of property on this development, which is already entitled to 50. So actually, it's pretty much for rooms a 1-for-1 exchange. And the last thing I'll point out is it's very obvious. Mondays are now no different than Fridays. If you're in downtown today, which you all work to come to council, or yesterday, Charleston is full. I mean, there's people all over the place, and they're going to continue to come. And it's what we do with them as they come onto the peninsula. And last night, actually, Mr. Hasty came and spoke to my class, and he talked about the tourism heat map, and put a heat map on tourism in Charleston, where would you see the reddest portions? And it's right in this corridor, all the way down through East Bay Street to White Point Gardens, the market, and a little bit of East Bay Street. Putting people in beds in that heat area is a very good idea. They're not going to get in their car most likely and go anywhere. Are we calling Ubers to go to White Point Garden? They're going to be in their place for the now average 4 days that they stay here. So if this was a site that was anything other than a hotel from its inception, maybe it's a different conversation, but this one has been thought about. It just fits the mind's eye as a hotel. I would just say this, particularly Mr. Ramos is here. This is your opportunity, man, for a career and for generations to make a huge difference in this corridor and to show the world what a sort of a hospitality feel, look on a large scale is in Charleston, South Carolina. So I'm gonna vote in favor of this and keep a really close eye on what happens as you conceive it going forward. I'd be really careful on looking at more height in there if you really need it, but 7 is pretty tall. So keep an eye on that too. So I would encourage a favorable vote on this. I agree with the Planning Commission. This straddles Councilmember Gregg's in my district, but it is home of the future District 8 very shortly. So here we go. Thanks.
Who's? Councilmember Mitchell.
I was going to ask a question, but Councilman Seekings kind of explained a little bit to me, but I just wondered why did we have to go up to add so many other rooms to that particular area? That's what I wanted to ask the
Mr. Wilson. And what was the question again, Councilmember?
why is the need for so many other rooms? That they have so many rooms there already, why have to add the additional rooms there? Because I'm looking at the traffic, I'm looking at what's happening. And my thing is always happening is that we are adding all these rooms, we're adding a lot of hotels, we're adding all this, but if something should happen, what's going to happen to these hotels? See, we're not looking, I'm looking at a vision down the road. I don't have a problem with the hotel being built, but I'm looking down the road. And we think there's not going to be another recession coming here. If you're thinking that's going to happen, that's a sign. You're spinning your wheels, because it's going to happen. And what's going to happen to these hotels around? So I'm just looking in the vision far ahead and why we need additional rooms when you have these rooms already, 100 and some more rooms already, and you have to add more to make it. So I don't know if it's all about economics and just putting it there to kind of grasp back.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mitchell. Thank you. I think really the way that we've approached it is taking the existing 124 room hotel and then adding about 50% more land area that we're acquiring and leasing on the back of the property that is already zoned for at least one 50-room hotel. We actually feel like we're pretty much kind of in the middle of the road on that. In other words, you could have this 124-room hotel plus another 50 or a couple 30-room hotels back there, something like that. So we think we're kind of in the middle ground on that. Fortunately, Charleston's obviously survived well through recessions. I don't quite know how hotels would be repurposed, knock on wood. For the meantime, obviously, we've got lots of folks who want to come here. But we do think that this is a sort of a reasonable middle ground approach, going up just about 25 rooms, considering the additional land that we're adding. And hopefully that means ultimately maybe we don't end up with 180 or 200 rooms in that same space.
One more question, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
sir. Yes, sir.
Do we actually, do y'all actually need the height that you're going up? We're talking about going up to 6 or 7. Do we have to go up that high?
We do believe that it yields a better design. Part of what we're trying to do is, part of it's required, but part of it is voluntary, that we're trying to add more ground level pedestrian open space and connections. So not only will there be the 10-foot setback along Hurlback and create a new sidewalk where there isn't one today, but we're also creating a pedestrian thoroughfare at the rear of the property between the new hotel and the existing King Street buildings that we're optimistic is going to create a great new, it's obviously not the low line, but it's something like that, a central block north-south corridor back there that has connections over to King Street, and then people can come through the hotel property to Meeting Street. And ultimately, the hope is that we could even have a connection, pedestrian connection all the way up to Market Street. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to open up more ground level space and put a little more height on top and then balance things out on the front on Meeting Street. And we think that creates an overall better design and with some public benefits there too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Saccharin and then Greg.
Thank you, Mayor. Very quick question, very similar to the height. So right now, it is zoned for 5 or 6 stories?
Yes, sir. It has 6 stories on the bulk of the site to the rear. And then it is allowed, there's an allowance at present for 4 stories at the front. I can go to the current zoning. Let's see. That's proposed. There's my. They've got a slide that is current zoning too. Yeah. Yeah, essentially, this is what the height is at present. With the 6-story on the bulk of the site, and then the 4-story up front. What they would be doing is having 5 in this area and 3 up here, and then 7 in the rear of the site.
And then one follow-up to that. So 7 is the max, but is 8 possible with architectural merit?
They could go through the architectural merit process, yes, sir, to go to 8.
Okay, and that's who makes that decision that it goes to 8?
The BAR would determine that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Greg and then Brady.
2 things. I guess one, we should all sort of be happy, I think, that a hotel of this nature is coming to Charleston. I mean, that speaks well for our city. 2, I would say that with regards to the height, I mean, if we look over 2 blocks to the north at Charleston Place, they have 8 and 9 stories there. So this, whether this is 6 or 7 or 8, I mean, there's context for that being 8 or 9 stories. They're maxed out at 8. So that doesn't concern me at all. Again, this is straddling Councilman Seekings and my district right now, but it'll be in District 8 here shortly. I support this, and I thank the applicant for being proactive and reaching out to council members and keeping us informed. This has been a very good process. Thank you.
Councilmember Brady.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on Councilmember Saccharin's question to Mr. Morgan. So with the existing height district, is there an additional for architectural merit on the existing height district?
Yes, sir. You could, so they could go to 7 with architectural merit right now, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Shade and then back to Seekings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Morgan, if can you go back to that slide that you have with you guys on the Seekings? Scott can.
Trying to remember which way Scott Camp was. Oh, went the wrong way for Scott Camp. There we go.
Okay. A couple of questions and for clarification. So what is a setback off of Meeting Street? What will be the setback requirements of this building from on the Meeting Street side?
So they can build to the property line, but they are required to have at least a 10-foot wide sidewalk, which can be within the right of way if the room is there. If not, they have to provide it on their own property if they're going over 4 stories in height.
So will that setback be consistent with what is existing there now?
Yeah, they have a slide that shows the survey plat that shows that they have 10 feet out in front at present. There it is. And this shows right here. They've actually got 11 feet from the existing buildings to the curb line, 11 feet 4 inches. So they're definitely getting the 10 feet there, but there's virtually no sidewalk on Hurlbeck. It might be a foot or 2. So there'll be a substantial increase.
Yeah. Well, no, the improvement on Hurlbeck is going to be tremendous. I'm just concerned about what's on the Meeting Street side as far as the sidewalk will not shrink.
No.
Okay. The second question I have is the Meeting Street Inn is 3 stories, as I understand. So what is the setback between the Meeting Street Inn and the buildings on that property? What would be the distance between the 2?
Well, some of that could come from the BAR process. On the surface, there isn't a required setback from that. But they have proposed in their height changes to go to 3 stories up in that northeastern corner against the Meeting Street Inn. And I know that they've got some hypothetical site plan layouts that show more of a setback. And let's see, here we go. This is what they're showing as a hypothetical setback, a hypothetical site plan at present. So you see that there's a small setback from the northeastern corner there, but that is not required by codes. But BAR has the ability to get them to kind of modulate the building a little bit based on design and aesthetics.
And that's one of my concerns, because that building has a porch, a portico on its south side. And if that building comes close enough to it, it's going to hide that beautiful building, which is the main character of that existing structure. And I'm sure it must have some historic significance to it. So is there any way to require them that there's a setback off of that so that we don't lose the character of that building, of Meeting Street Inn?
So, yeah. Here you see how there is the piazza that you were talking about here.
Right.
There's a good bit of distance on their own property, not the 155 Meeting property, but the Inn's property that I don't know the exact number of feet, and the design team may know the exact number of feet. So there's a good bit of room there. And then again, they are setting it back a little bit, but that is one of the things that I know that BAR looks at very, very carefully, is relationships of new buildings to existing buildings.
Can I ask Mayor, the applicant, if they could shed any more light on that part of it?
Yes, sir, Mr. State. We do intend to set back from the property line. As Mr. Morgan said, there already is property on the south side, open space on the south side of the Meeting Street Inn on their property. We're going to set back further from that. We don't have an exact number, but what we intend is something like 5+ feet to set back from that property line.
And that portion of the building, as I'm looking at these slides, is 3 feet. So it's going to be consistent with the height of the Meeting Street Inn.
Yes, sir. That northeast corner, what we're doing is we're actually reducing our height zone on that corner. Right now it's 4, and we're going to take it down to 3 stories for the very purpose that you're saying, to respect and be appropriate relative to that, the Meeting Street Inn historic building.
And I would just hope that, because that is a significant building, and it's a magnificent looking building, and you see it very clearly as it exists right now. But the further south you can go away from it, will add to the character and maintain that. Mr. Mayor, I'll just say that if you go back to that aerial view again, Mr. Morgan, the building directly across the street, that office building, I worked there when I was at the U.S. Attorney's office. It is a hideous looking building. Yeah, and of course, my view was always looking down at the Days Inn. And so whatever improvement we're gonna have is gonna be a massive improvement of what's existing there right now. And I mean, that's it's gonna be a whole lot. But it looks like something built in the 50s or the 60s as a motor lodge. It's very popular. It had been very popular anyhow. So as long as we're picking up the 10 feet on Horrback Alley, because I can't tell you that photograph you had, Mr. Morgan, of the horse carriage, that when those carriages try to go down that Horrback Alley with that existing area, there's no safe place for any pedestrians to walk down Horrback Alley. Those townhouses are right up on that sidewalk. And there's so much you can do because of the current existence of those buildings that are on Horrback Alley now. But whatever improvement we make on that sidewalk is going to be a safety issue for a lot of folks, and it add probably a lot to the overall eye appeal down looking at it at Horrback Alley. So thanks for answering my questions. Those are my concerns I had with that, and appreciate the detail they'll have. And of course, the fight's going to come later on down the road with the BAR, I guess. Yeah.
Just very briefly, Mr. Mayor, I just looked at my notes. I want to give a shout out to the Planning Commission on this one, because they did something I think is very important, and I hope they'll look at this with other infill developments that are large in scale like this, and that is that Horrback Alley setback. That's actually a big deal. You're reclaiming 10 feet of public space on a street that literally, if you walk down that street today, at some point you have to walk in the road. There is no direct way across Holbeck Alley, which is the connection between Meeting and King Street in a very heavily traveled area that you can't walk down except in the middle of the street. You've got carriages, you got cars, you got a parking garage there. So good for the Planning Commission for having that vision and working within their parameters and having those kind of setbacks and reclaiming some public space for things other than the sleeping, for getting around. I think it's a nice precedent to have, as there's gonna be lots of, well, not lots, but a good number of other pretty large scale projects that are gonna want to go right up to that zero lot line. And this is a huge public improvement, huge.
Councilmember Appel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and James and Steve, y'all did a great job with the presentation. This all looks wonderful, and I think it's a great opportunity to sort of breathe some light and life into this area of Meeting Street. My question has to do with what Councilman Seekings just talked about, and I couldn't agree more. I think this 10-foot area on Horlbeck is a wonderful idea. It'll really add to the streetscape and frankly, the safety and pedestrian walkability in that area. My question is more of a technical one. I don't know how we can place conditions on zoning changes. And so I don't think we really can do this. I would suggest that maybe the BZA, let's not forget, not only does this have to go before the BAR for architectural review, it has to go before the BZA for special exception review. I would like to, and I mean, I know that the developer and this team, their word is their bond, but just to make sure that this is legally, we're pulling it up by our belt and suspenders, we all commit to a condition that the BZA is for special exception to, make this 10-foot, addition on Horlbeck.
Councilman Appel, if I could just real quickly.
Sure.
So it was not really a condition. It was asking, and it was stating that they were not approving a height change for that first 10 feet in. In other words, they were backing it up. They backed the line up, which has been very common with Planning Commission to back some lines up on height changes. So that is what they did, is they recommended that on Horlbeck, it be at least 10 feet back before you got to extra height.
So, Mr. Pell, so the first 10 feet right there at Horlbeck in Meeting will remain its current four stories, and then it'll go up to 5. So the effect of it is that the 5-story building will be set back 10 feet. But you're right, it's not a condition on the rezoning, which we lawyers couldn't do.
Yeah,
but in short, yes, we are happy to commit when we go to BZA to include that can be a condition at BZA, which of course can lawfully impose conditions. We will be setting back 10 feet from the property line for our building on Horlbeck.
I make that a condition of the motion that does go to the BZA and gets approved.
Okay, we're all here. We all remember what we're talking about. We're keeping minutes. We're all talking about. Okay, great.
If I may just add to that, you mentioned very well how you would increase pedestrian connectivity. And someone mentioned there's not much public benefit here, but there is some. In addition to the sidewalk along Horlbeck Alley, this possibility or reality of creating a pedestrian walkway through the middle of the block that would connect Charleston Place through city property right here behind the back of the hotel. And this is a maybe, but we're going to try to work it out to come behind this parking garage and connect with the new park, the new urban park here that BMOC Hospitality is going to purchase and develop for us. And then right at the southern end of that park is where you get into that pedestrian walkway that goes east-west. From the churches over on Archdale over to the churches over on Church Street. So it could create this most interesting pedestrian walkway and maze right in this central part of the city, which I think would be a great public benefit. All right. Any other comments or questions? This is just first reading. You'll have to come back. We can think a little more about the BZA. Councilmember Shea.
I just want to give a shout out to our clerk and Mr. Morgan. We got the slides that was presented at the Planning Commission, and I'm gonna tell you that makes all the difference in the world for us to look at the visual, at least for me anyhow. I see other heads nodding. So thank you for doing that. And it's just a big benefit. We can go through what planning commission saw. So please continue to provide us with those slides.
Councilmember Waring.
Just a point of order. Is the motion going to include a condition about BZA or not?
I don't think so, because that would put a condition on zoning.
We just had some discussion. I just wanted.
Well, I think that
We'll be
we
clear on
can
the motion.
condition approval of the, all right, well, never mind that. Fine. Motion approved, and we'll keep an eye on it at the BZA.
We're gonna keep a close eye on that. All in favor of the motion, just first reading, say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay,
So just for the record, Councilmember Brady is a nay on number 4, and Councilmember Parker, you're a nay on is it number 4 as well. And did that include the 10-foot setback recommendation? All right, thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, just under the rules, I just wanted to explain, similar to the question that I had based on Councilmember Saccharin's. Given the architectural merit that would let them already go up to 7, I just was opposed to the height change to
Understood.
allow them to go up to 8.
but there may be another way to skin that cat. We'll come back to that. All right, so next is number 3 that we hadn't covered yet. If you'd back up, Mr. Morgan, do number 3 for us.
Okay, and this is 1776 and 1766 Ashley River Road. It is a property that has been pending for annexation. They had first read for annexation. And they went through our whole review process for building a new Parker's convenience store on this site. It's currently the old Wachovia site branch. They have gotten the approvals that they were interested in. They also went to the DRB. And now they are bringing it back for second and final reads. And of course, this is the public hearing for the zoning on the property. The zoning that is recommended for the property would be general business. The planning commission has reviewed that. It's also a site that in our comprehensive plan is neighborhood edge. So that is more compatible based on the current zoning with having general business on the site. It was CC in Charleston County. Again, that points to general business. The current site is this older bank that is not occupied at present, and it will be torn down. A new Parker's convenience store built there, and it has been going through our site plan review, our technical review process, and DRB and Planning Commission did recommend approval 7-0 for the general business on the site.
All right, would anyone like to be heard on this matter?
I believe Daniel Ben Israel signed up to speak.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm Daniel Ben Israel, Real Estate Development Manager for the Drayton Parker Companies and Parker's Kitchen. We're delighted to have this property annexed into the city. We're looking forward to beginning construction on our second location in the city of Charleston. We're approaching April 6th, I think, is our, which will hopefully be our last or final TRC meeting. But we're getting close to getting all of our approvals. And we're looking forward to getting the site out to bid and under construction, hopefully in June. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to be heard on this matter? And I would note to council, we're going to vote on this after we get the second readings because we got to approve the annexation officially first before the zoning. But any questions or comments from council? Councilmember Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And there's a little bit of history with this property and this application. And it goes back to when Councilmember Shealy brought to my attention that Parker's had intended to build this facility on Playground Road and St. Andrews Boulevard. And part of that requirement included the demolition of a building. And so they went before DRB, and DRB denied that application. And we were working with the applicant. And somehow, I'm not sure how it eventually got to that point, but we were looking at this parcel, the Wells Fargo building, which had been abandoned. So this is a better location. We're glad that they're coming into the city. And we were working with some other components on this particular project. So I'm glad we're moving it over here. And I had challenged Councilmember Waring because his district has a Burger King across the street. So we're taking care of this particular abandoned site, and hopefully this will have a positive impact on making the improvements on Sam Rittenberg on diagonally across the site of that old Burger King. So I just wanted to thank the applicant for the work. This has been a collaborative effort. Thank Councilmember Shealy when this indirectly got the ball rolling on this, I guess, when we were addressing the Playground Road property instead. So very good improvement on this overall, and which shows what we can do when you have a collaborative effort with the private industry and all the stakeholders.
Move for approval.
Second.
We're going to vote on this after we have the annexation at second reading. We'll come back. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Brady.
I just had a point of order as a procedural question. Could we not move to approve this pending annexation and go ahead and vote now?
It's been our
But-
custom to come back. It's not a
Yes,
big
the
deal.
property needs to be annexed into the city first.
All right. All right, here, no further questions on that. Next up is to approve our city council minutes from February 28th. We got a motion to approve. Any changes, deletions, additions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is our citizens participation period. And so glad we have many guests here, and you're welcome to share any comments with us. We got a few people signed up.
Yes, sir. And what would you like a time limit? We have 4 people signed up in person and 3 people who signed up online. Okay, the time limit is 2 minutes. Anthony Bryant.
I made contact with the Real Estate Commission about my reactivation of my broker and charge license. I let sit for a while. Now, what happened, I did a faith-based public comment for popular faith-based organizations because I served in a board of zoning appeals, and I was concerned about overlay districts, military districts. And I heard that the Berkeley County Sheriff, who's working with the City of Charleston Police Department, and others have defined me as unpopular in my points of view, which I like. I went to the State Ports Authority board meeting. After that board meeting, I found out it was a reversionary clause that Joe Riley removed to revert the property back to the city of Charleston. Revert it back. The impact it would have on Black folk would be great. We got the property back in our possession, but we didn't. So what happened to the removal of that reversionary clause? What's the impact there? Secondly, I was told that Jim Clyburn, Tim Scott, Marlon Kimpson, both of them ain't from, 3 of them ain't from the Peninsula of Charleston. They have no position on my speech at all. I don't support that pyramid you're building $200 million. The African American Museum is a metaphor to a pyramid. Okay, it's a tombstone for Black folk who was here at one time. And so let our people go. We're gone. Here's your museum. So that's my position on this whole thing with these Black folk who sell people out in our community for a few dollars. Where the Black people at? Where are they? In the museum? $100 million for affordable housing in the museum? We gonna live in there? We gonna be there? That's my speech. That's my point of view, brothers and sisters. Marlon Kimpson and Jim Clyburn and Tim Scott, who ain't grew up in the peninsula. I did.
Bob O'Brien.
Bob O'Brien, 10 Stutz Court. I live in Shadow Moss. My street abuts part of Church Creek, tributary to Church Creek. The town recently decided that in that area, they were going to clean the creek, noble effort. So what did they do? They brought in a huge Caterpillar shovel and found they couldn't use the shovel because there was foliage, rose bushes, some trees, small trees albeit, blocking it from the bank. So they bring in another piece of equipment to take out all of the trees and the bushes, rose bushes, etc., to get the shovel to the bank. They get the shovel to the bank and you realize that it's chewing up the bank. I say, well, are you going to reseed the bank? No, we're not going to do that. I said, well, what happens when the spring rains come and the sediment goes into the creek? No answer. What are you going to do with this, all of the foliage that you've taken out so far? They piled it up there. I said, that's great. That's good habitat for the water moccasins. They left the place as a disgrace. I live right there, 200 feet from it. With all due respect, Mayor, I think that this is a disrespectful way to treat the environment, to treat the creek, and to treat the citizens that live in that area. I brought photographs that I asked to pass around to the council to see what I'm talking about. I would ask the council to consider appointing some concerned citizens like myself to have an input in this area because it's vital to us. My street floods. It was one of the streets that flooded along with Three Pence and the end of the area. This is a concern I have with the way we're treating it. So I would ask you to consider doing that. Thank you.
Marcus McDonald.
Hello, Mayor, City of Charleston. My name is Marcus McDonald, lead organizer of Charleston Black Lives Matter. I'm here for two reasons. First, to support the proclamation for the passage of the Reverend Clinton Clement Pinckney hate crime bill. Too often I've seen many of you use the massacre manual to gain political points. Again, even against those fighting for racial justice, as I said before, that is so disrespectful to the families and those fighting for justice today. My great grandmother who lived and died in the city passed away at 102 and was a survivor of the Red Summer of 1919. Some of y'all don't know about that. Where even here in Charleston, there's a race riot led by white soldiers that went through Moore Street and throughout the peninsula. This wasn't 400 years ago. Having kumbaya moment is nice, but you can't kumbaya racial disparities away. Action and policy are the only meaningful way to progress as a city. On that note, I'm also here to speak up for Coach Edward Jones, who's been doing amazing work on the east side and all over Charleston for years. Anything from bad grades at schools to building preservations to a shooting at the park, Coach Jones is always there. Removing him from a position, you're robbing the people of an irreplaceable asset and an advocate. We do food giveaways every third Thursday at 3 p.m. at Martin Park if you want to see a glimpse of the work he does, or you can just go to the E and ask anybody about him. They're going to tell you, oh yeah, he been the truth. I urge you and the city to further reinstate and promote Edward Jones to the level he needs to be and support him as he supports our community. And in closing, Black lives still matter. Thank you.
Edward Jones.
I was just asked by members of the community to bring these envelopes down here and pass the 13 out to y'all. That's why I'm here.
And Mr. Idris, did we miss you?
Yes. I've been coming down here close to 40 years. I like how they set up 12 consummate. It looked like a horseshoe. 4 on this side, 4 in the middle, 4 on this side. And that's 12 in the male make 13. So well, that's like the 13 stripes in the flag, red, white, and blue. The red representing social life, the blue representing the deceptive life, and the white representing the purity. We were told here in this council that the hotel was not going to higher than 3 stories high by the former mayor. And we see that is not the case. It's going 10 stories, maybe higher than that. And it is the work of man. We hardly can see the creation of God. All we can see is man work. And as Jesus said, this world is darkness. And he said, I'm off the world. I'm in the world, but not off the world. You all open up in the name of God, but you're not doing the work of God. It's not racism. It's greed, envy, jealousy, and ignorance. We have a council here that's have Jews on it, Muslim on it, female, the whole 9 yards. So again, it's not racism. It's greed, envy, jealousy, and ignorance. Thank you.
Tony Daniel.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Mayor, I'm starting to think you're not going to open those roads up. I don't know, maybe 2.5 years. Keep in mind, your lawyer told you that only thing that was authorized was a temporary barricade. The letters I gave you from Drake Rogers the last time I was here said our only interest was keeping traffic away from our homes. That's your friend. Those are the people that you work for. They say they represent the whole neighborhood. They only represent a third. The law is clear. You cannot close a road if it doesn't benefit everyone. You can't close it without a voting city council. You don't have any of those. So I can't imagine what rationale there is for having the roads still closed. It's got to be that you must be thinking there's going to be votes. Nobody's ever given me a logical reason, a legal reason, or anything of why the road should remain closed. Now, of course, I went and saw the emails from Ross Appel and saw the dirty work that he was doing behind the scenes, which is shameful, yet nobody's ever called him out on it. Nobody said, this is not who Charlestonians are. This is not who we represent. I see your slogans that go out to people coming, we welcome you to the city. Unless, of course, you're a veteran, we're not so sure about it. Unless, of course, you're elderly, like my father. Unless you're a stroke victim, not so concerned about those. Maybe that's only 2 votes. But I can tell you, people are coming up to me on the street. They're asking me what's going on. They ask me what the problem is, and I don't know what to tell them. So would somebody send me a legal definition of why I'm wrong? Or open up the roads? Those are the 2 choices. Thank you.
Eric Hofstrom. And if you're online, you can press *6 to unmute yourself. Eric Hofstrom. Corey Gladstein. Corey Gladstein. All right, we'll move on to our comments that were submitted online. This is just a summary of comments received by citizens who have not already spoken. All comments were sent to City Council in full for their review prior to the council meeting. Jerome Harris urged council to vote in favor of the resolution to advocate for the enactment of hate crime legislation for South Carolina. This was a recommendation of the Human Affairs and Racial Conciliation Commission and had been advanced by council members Saccharin and Waring. He also urged approval of the 3 appointments to CPAC. We also received a joint comment from the Coastal Conservation League, Historic Charleston Foundation, and Southern Environmental Law Center, requesting approval of the bill to prohibit the use of certain foundation types in the city's 100-year regulatory floodplain. As Charleston continued to grow, it was critical that it did so in a resilient manner without overdeveloping vulnerable locations susceptible to flooding. They supported the effort to prohibit the use of fill material to meet the city's freeboard requirement and prohibit the use of slab-on-grade foundations for single-family homes in the 100-year floodplain. And those were all the comments we received.
Thank you. Did we miss anyone? Anybody would like to be heard? The floor is open. Thank you for being with us tonight, and we appreciate those who made comments. So next up on our agenda is petitions and communications. We have some appointments, but staff respectfully would like to defer item 1-4 until our next meeting. So we have 1, 2, and 3 being the Citizens Police Advisory Council members, the Commission on Disability Issues, and the Resiliency and Sustainability Advisory Committee members. Council Member Shade.
On item number 4, can we get a breakdown as to the composition of that tourism commission?
We can provide that to you right now on the floor is items 1 through 3.
I know that. I know we're deferring 4, but between now and next meeting, when we bring up number 4, I'd like to have a breakdown on who's on.
Be happy to do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, who's on the commission, and I know that commission requires certain specified slots.
It does.
So I'd like to have that reflected and as to their, the terms on some of the members of that commission as well. They've expired, and they've been renewed to the status of the whole thing.
That's easy. We'll get that to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments on 1, 2, and 3? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next up, are we pleased and honored to have a report from the new president and CEO of the Charleston Gaillard Center. She's a remarkable leader. She's been on the job, I think, about a year now. Has it been that long?
Yeah.
And y'all, there's been a renaissance at the Gaillard. She's doing a fabulous job. I see she brought most of the board with her tonight. It's so delightful to see y'all here. Maybe Lissa will introduce everyone in just a moment. Thank you for coming and giving us a report. And let me just, I know you're probably going to introduce Charlton as part of the team, but everyone knows, I think, that Charlton Singleton is the new artistic director of the Moja Festival, and congratulations, and we welcome you in that role as well. Y'all.
Yes, thank you for inviting us here today, Mayor. And we're so appreciative of all of the support from the city. And for those of you who I haven't met personally, I hope I'll have the opportunity to do that soon. I also want to recognize all of our board members here. Thank you so much for joining us. Please maybe stand up and be recognized, all of you. We're so delighted to have so many board members joining us here today. And also grateful to have the mayor and Councilmember Waring on our board as well. So thank you so much. I think most of you know that the GMC was established as a nonprofit in 2015 to run the Gaillard Center on behalf of the city and our community. One of the cornerstones of our model has been providing a community asset that supports businesses, other nonprofits in the city with important celebrations, conferences, and events. Just last week, we hosted 500 executives from Volvo at the Gaillard Center from around the world for a major product launch. And on the same day, we had 600 people for the Citadel Foundation in the building celebrating the scholarship program for that important institution. We're delighted to be part of the infrastructure in the city that allows this stuff to happen. And it's part of the model of the Gaillard that we use those events and the income they produce to support the arts and the arts education programming. So we're in the second stage of the Gaillard 2.0. And in this phase, we're recommitting to the artistic principles for which the Gaillard was initially founded. This is sort of the heart of the institution, I like to call it. So in addition to the beloved programming that started in phase 1, we pledge in this next phase to be a cultural leader who presents, produces, and commissions ambitious cultural programming and focuses on 5 core commitments. So the first is a commitment to inspiring and educating through the arts. And we do this in a lot of ways. And I have an entire core commitment associated with the education program that Charlton's going to help me describe in a little bit. But for this one of the things that I'm most passionate about is producing and presenting work that features untold stories. And whenever we can, Charleston or Southern stories, and allows us to spark conversation in the community through the arts. So we did this last summer with the Denmark VC Bicentenary, where we, with the International African American Museum and the Mother Emanuel Church, shed a spotlight on this important figure, a historic figure in our community, and I hope sparked conversation in a way that only the arts can do. We stood on the shoulders of a number of council members here and people in our community who created a wonderful foundation for that conversation, but I was proud of how the conversation at the Gaillard was even different from that. We also, in a very different way, we sparked conversation through our partnership with the South Carolina Aquarium, bringing National Geographic speakers to our stage to discuss issues of climate change and the effects on our oceans. And we shed the spotlight on some of the many extraordinary artists in our community through Charlton's Spiegel Tent Show, homegrown, nationally known, which focused on many of the talented artists in South Carolina. And you all are some of the first to know that we are producing our first theatrical work on Robert Smalls in October of 2023. We're very, very proud of this exciting project. It includes a creative team of all Southern-based artists. And it's a pilot program at the Gaillard in developing and distributing new family theatrical productions that highlight Southern minority stories that are often missing from the history books. The world premiere will be in October 2023. And in addition to 2 public performances, we'll be offering 4 student-only matinees, reaching 6,000 Tri-County students, 70% of which come from Title I schools. So we're extraordinarily excited about that one.
So I've seen this photo a number of times, of course, in black and white.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've actually seen it in color of Robert's.
Yes,
Very interesting coat he has on.
Our fearless director, Jamaica Holloway, uncovered this. It's an interpretation by a French artist, actually. But she thinks that it represents the type of Robert that we want to showcase for our kids and for our community. And I have to say about this project, it doesn't end there with the 6,000 students from the Low Country. We are planning on touring the work both within the South and across the nation so that we can bring this Charleston hero into the lives and minds of more than just the South, but our entire nation. So our second commitment is to quality and creativity. This is a world-class facility. It was built to show off the best artists could offer, from the local to the international. And we intend to bring Charleston the best artists in the world. But it also means committing to the artists, in my mind. Our currency is the creative expression of these artistic minds, and we feel strongly that cultural centers should invest in the artists that we present. So we did this last year when we committed to commissioning a new work with the Dance Theater of Harlem with the International African American Museum. And one of the benefits of doing this is that you get closer with the artists. And so there's an opportunity to engage even deeper with the community. For this program alone, we had 4 master classes with members of the Charleston dance community. We had a community dance class on the lawn. You can see some of our community members raising their arms. We had a panel discussion. We had pre and post show events with donors who help support the work. And we had a sold out 1,500 students in attendance, student only matinee of the production. So it's programs like these that allow us to get closer with the artists. And while we can't commission all of our work, we intend to do that with the touring artists as well, so that we create an even deeper engagement for our community. All right, I'm going to speed through this, but I want to get to all 5 commitments. So commitment 3 is our engaging with the community. And I talked about that a little bit, but one of the main things that we're interested in doing is really creating partnerships. This obviously happens on an individual basis, but I think meaningfully through the partnerships that we created last year with International African American Museum, the Mother Emanuel Church, as I mentioned. We work very extensively with the Charleston Symphony. And next year, we intend to increase the range of those partnerships, starting with the Nashville Ballet, expanding to partner with SEWE, the Low Country Jazz Festival, and most recently with a number of cultural institutions in the city in the Anson African Burial Memorial Project. These are some pictures sort of hot off the press from Stephen Hayes casting the hands of community members for this fountain that will appear on the Gaillard grounds in the next year. We're so excited about this, and we're really delighted that the Gaillard is going to be the stewards of the education program that goes along with this piece of art. Our 4th commitment is a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we are doing that through our approach to all things, developing new audiences, the art we put on the stage, and how we interact with our community on a staff and a board level. In our case, this also means activating our campus and making sure the arts feel accessible to the whole community. So we sold 95,000 tickets last year, 70% to Tri-County patrons. This is all of your constituents, and we want to make sure everyone feels welcome. So last year, we started a partnership with a number of local organizations. Just a couple of them are mentioned on the side of the slide, that have access to free or deeply discounted tickets through our community access and student access funds. It also creates a network of community organizations that come together to the Gaillard to make sure that everyone feels as if they're welcome in our institution. We're distributing thousands of tickets through this program and through the VetTix program. And we'd love to know if there are other community groups or others in your community that would be interested in participating in this program. We'd love to welcome them to the Gaillard. And finally, we have a commitment to lead through our commitment to arts education. Oops, and I'm going to pass it over to Charlton in a second, but this just shows some of the statistics that we have about that program. We've serviced 120,000 students since we opened our doors, 25,000 students in this season alone. 85% of Charleston elementary schools attend programs at the Gaillard, and these are not just field trips. We offer in-school workshops for every single school that decides to come to the Gaillard for a field trip to put a curriculum context on the work. And we also offer a completely barrier-free program. So this is free for anybody who wants to come. We provide the buses and the tickets. So I thought who would be better to talk about this program than Charlton Singleton, who has been involved in our education program. He doesn't need an introduction here. But you may not know that he was our first artist in residence at the Gaillard Center. He's been involved in so many programs, and he can kind of embroider the ways that our education program reaches all of our students through the stuff he does with us. So, Charlton.
Thank you. And hello, everyone again, Mr. Mayor. Yes, when I was offered the position to be the artistic or the artist in residence, it seemed like a natural fit, as much as I've grown up with my parents being in education and a lot of other friends and family in education that were very close in my circle. It seemed like a natural fit for me to go out to schools and talk with students about the importance of how many famous and important entertainers and things that have come from the Low Country in South Carolina in general. And the work that the Gaillard Center has done in education has been tremendous. And there are a number of programs and events and performances that happen. There's at least 24 performances that come through every season that we've had so far. And there are a few of them that are near and dear to me. For example, like Jazz Day for Kids. Jazz Day for Kids, we fill the auditorium up. We have a live performing band on stage, so the kids are actually there to hear and see it all happen right in front of them as we give some commentary about what they're listening to and explaining how things work, which is something that goes also into how we go out into the classrooms and speak to students to make sure that they are getting a better understanding, as well as the teachers, because the teachers learn a lot about what's going on as well. Jazz Day for Kids is always a big seller, I should say. There's usually a long list of schools that want to come, and so we look forward to that every year. We also offer summer camps. In our summer camps, we have 2 theater camps, we have a dance camp, and of course we have a jazz camp. The Youth Jazz Orchestra Camp takes place for a week. We have middle school and high school students that sign up, and they come and they have instruction from various local professionals and educators from our area. The camp culminates with a public concert, and on a few occasions, we've actually had the students to come back during the year and perform with some of the artists that have come and performed on the main stage at the Gaillard. So that's been a treat for them to be able to perform with some of these legendary folks. Side note about that, the camp this year, I'm extremely proud to say that we have an instructor that is going to be new to our camp as an instructor, but this young man was one of our campers at our first camp. So it's come kind of full circle, which is a very good feel-good moment. We also have our Raising the Volume series that is curated by myself and Marcus Amaker. I was very thankful to the Gaillard for allowing us to curate this series, where Marcus and I have had the opportunity to interview some of the, I call them older hierarchy in town, as well as some of the new movers and shakers. And we discuss stories and things that are, as Lisa said, some of them untold in our community, new initiatives that may be happening that people don't know, but it's actually given us this platform where we can actually have discussions, open discussions. These are recorded, they are uploaded, and we have other members of our educational team that offer these videos out to schools and to teachers and students so that they can have lesson plans and things in order to examine all of the content of that. And once again, it's just really an honor to curate that. And speaking of the curation of it, being a part of the Denmark VC project was a very big honor for me to help in the ways that I did. And also I'm looking forward to this particular project on Robert Smalls to write some music and Jamaica is just a breath of fresh air and so there's a lot of fantastic educational things going on at the Gaillard, and we thank you.
Thank you. I just want to close. I want to reiterate how grateful we are to the city for the support that you give us. And it's extraordinarily important to us now. And it's also going to be extraordinarily important as we grow. And we are growing. With our board, we have developed a 4-year plan for the growth of the institution, which will increase our operating budget by 50%. And it will allow us to continue to invest in all of the programs that we were just talking about. In order to do that with the Gaillard Foundation, we're growing our support network and our endowment so that this community asset continues to be sustainable. I'm delighted to announce that we have identified an anonymous donor who's put forth $6 million in a 2-to-1 match for artistic programming and education endowment. When we raise $3 million, we will receive another $6 million that will be invested for the institution. And we've already raised nearly 50% to our goal. So we're very excited about this. Yes. Thank you.
Awesome. That's terrific.
And I want to say that I'm extremely proud and optimistic about where the Gaillard is now. And I spoke a lot about how important partnerships are. The partnership with the city is the most important one. When we look around at other cities with successful arts programs, they only happen in cities where the city is contributing and excited about the culture in the community and values that. And I feel humbled and honored to be leading an institution in a city that does that for Charleston. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from council members? Councilmember Waring.
I had the pleasure of serving on the search committee with Ted Legacy. Could you stand up, Ted? He chaired a wonderful process. And I got to tell you, previously, we had silos between the Gaillard, the foundation, Spoleto, the symphony, and what I call the next best CEO who came to town, Lissa Frankel, knocked down those silos, knocked down those Chinese walls. We have a board, and I know you all stood, but please stand again. We have a board at the Gaillard that has Fortune 500 talent. And when they come to board meetings, you've been there, Mr. Mayor, Rick Giroux's been there, certainly I had the pleasure of serving. Like as Tiger Woods says, they come with their A game. It's a race to the top with better ideas to keep the Gaillard in the black, to raise the quality of life in this area. I wrote down 95,000 tickets sold last year. Mike Seeking's Gaillard, Mike Seeking's, Councilman Gregory, myself, Councilmember Mitchell, remember when the Gaillard was dark, okay? We were losing almost $1 million a year. The parking garage was empty after 5 o'clock because there were no performances. We now have world-class performances that we used to have to get on a plane, fly to New York, Boston, Chicago, some of the finest cities in the world, stay in New York hotels, eat New York food or Chicago food, fly back home. Now we can get that world-class talent, eat Charleston food, and sleep in our own bed at night. And sleeping in our own beds at night.
That's a pretty good deal.
That's a pretty good deal. Has any council member or any staff member happened to be in the Gaillard when students exit a performance with their teachers? Who doesn't love that scene? You know, sometimes I feel a little sorry for the teachers. How are they gonna calm them back down when they get them back to school? And it's these stakeholders right here that make it happen. But for them, the Gaillard may be dark. And look at the quality that we all would lose. So I hope you would join me in giving every last one of these board members here and out, not here, a hand. So it is not a contribution to the Gaillard. It is investment that we put into the Gaillard. So thank you all for what you do. Thank you, Dr. Benson. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Waring. You took the words out of my mouth. I have been there already 3 or 4 times this year. I'm always the first one to jump up and at a chaperoning opportunity at the Gaillard. And those kids just love it. I mean, it's just an incredible experience for everyone. You even have homeschool classes that we took part in performances. And I just thank you for all of that because it is really such a wonderful experience for the kids and the chaperone.
Thank you for coming and being a part of that.
Councilmember Saccharin.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be brief. So I've been on council for 3 years and we get all sorts of presentations that come to the chambers. And I have to say that you all put your money where your mouth is. It's remarkable. And it's rare that I feel this sense of mission from an organization, particularly around your serving youth. It's near and dear to my heart. Stats that you shared about the kids that you all work with, you all should be applauded because it's that enrichment gap that students don't necessarily get to see. And it's remarkable to see an organization lean into that. It's rare. So I want to say thank you for everything y'all are doing. You're under great leadership with Councilman Waring on your board, but I can tell just by the looks and faces of the current board members that you all have a top-notch set of executives that lead that. And I'll put a final plug in. If anyone steps off, I'd be happy to step on and help because you guys are it's remarkable.
We're going to write that down.
Yes. So thank you all.
All right. Well, thank you again for being with us. Listen, I meant that so sincerely. Thank you for coming to Charleston and for your leadership. Thank you for the service of all the board members here and not here. And I'm just going to read your byline here. As good as this report is, the best is yet to come, right? That's what. Thank you for being with us this evening. All right. Next up, we have a Commission on History quarterly update. It's a written report. It's in your agenda package. It's very short. You can read it in a minute. I'll ask Councilmember Shade if he wants to add anything to it as our council member who serves on the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think Councilman Parker is also, aren't you a member of this? Aren't you a member of this commission with me?
Yes,
Yeah.
I am.
I thought so. So
thank you.
The work of the commission is so vitally important. They are very meticulous on the work that they do in the review, particularly on things that coming with wording on plaques as to where a comma should go, where an I should be dotted. But in my involvement have been with them on a limited basis, but when we came up with the wording on the plaque in honor of Judge Fields and recently on this plaque with the Ride of 1919, the work goes unnoticed. And it's very educational from my standpoint. I had no idea about this ride of the Red Scare ride of 1919 until it was brought up to our attention. So I just made the recommendation to our chair that the city council should be made aware of the work that we have, that they were doing, and how important this work is. We're one of the oldest and most historic cities in America, and having this commission to make sure that they serve as a guardrails of what is written and what is reported. So critically important that we don't lose this history and that we're as inclusive as we possibly can on some of these items that take place. So quarterly, you'll get a report, hopefully about this length as to what the commission is doing. And I would encourage you from time to time to come to some of those commission meetings. You can log into them. I think they're still virtual.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. All right, next up is our council communications. We have 2 items that are related. One is a resolution encouraging the South Carolina governor and South Carolina Senate to adopt the hate crime bill requested by Councilmember Saccharin and Waring. Then a thank you letter from Council to Representative Wendell Gaillard for his work on this matter, also requested by Councilmember Waring. If it's without objection, we take the 2 items together since they're together. We got a motion to approve the 2 items, and I think it's pretty self-evident. This council has made a similar resolution two or three times in the past, and we hope it gets over the top this time. Would anyone like to make any remarks? Councilmember Waring,
Thank you.
Sacrin?
I'm gonna yield Councilman Sacrin first, and then I'll speak after him. Thank you.
I'm actually going to yield back to you. I'm good.
Listen, you're right. This council has had a resolution before. It's passed the House before. Councilman, I still want to refer to him as Councilman
Gaillard,
but I
representative.
guess he got to start him, but now he's a representative Gaillard. I remember when he was alone champion this. I mean, South Carolina is but one of 2 states, 48 states in the union has already passed hate crimes legislation. South Carolina remains with, I guess, 49th and 50th who have it. Again, the day I prayed and we prayed for those students, you know, anyway, the students in Nashville, there's a picture in the day's paper with this little girl on the school bus crying with the fear in her eyes. Anyway, hate hopefully has to stop. And that needs to be led by our, hopefully, leadership in Columbia. I know we are all on the same page on this one, but I don't want to forget to say thank you for what has already been done. It has been marshaled through the House. It is in the Senate right now, virtually about to be debated. So I wanted to thank those who have helped marshal it this far and ask those who are yet to debate it to put their most serious consideration and actions towards passage, and certainly wanted to do that in unison with you, Mr. Mayor, and all our colleagues on council. So thank you.
Absolutely. Would anyone else like to be heard?
Mr. Mayor, just a
Yes, sir.
reminder, this council passed our own hate crime ordinance. And part of that was in support of this proposed statute. And not having this passed by the General Assembly is a crime in and of itself. It's just a crime. And we've got to get this thing done, and anything we can do to promote it, to put pressure on our members of our General Assembly. It's in the Senate now, where it has died several times. It's got to get passed sooner or later.
All right, we have a motion to approve the resolution and the Senate. Thank you to Representative Gaillard. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you so much for bringing that forward. Next is our council committee report. First up is our Committee on Community Development. Councilmember Mitchell.
The community development met on March 17th at 3 p.m. and only had one item to deal with, which was number 1, review of the approval for 24 community development block grant, and that was approved. And I-2 was just a presentation by the Planning, Preservation, Sustainability staff, and they will be coming back to us with some other information dealing with residential uses for density for commercial zone property. So I'd like to ask approval for those, for the committee, for the report.
Great. All right. Any discussion? Questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right. Next up is our Committee on Recreation. Councilmember Shealy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Committee on Recreation met last week, Monday, March 20th. We discussed the next steps for the Park and Recreation Master Plan. We had a formal letter drafted that's now gone out to Pekin Hands to get the Trust Republic lands engaged to help us with the surveying and communicating with the community. We will need input from each one of our council members on the needs in and around each district so that we make sure every district receives attention. We have a large list of projects, some on a large project list, some are on small project lists. Jason Kronsberg has that list, and so I asked the council members to be on the lookout for an email from Jason with more information in the next few days to look over those projects and be prepared to have a workshop discussing, getting down a little bit more in the nitty gritty than we did in the last council workshop meeting. We had a discussion on Carl Richardson Park. Y'all know it's a beautiful picturesque park being used as a neighborhood park right now. Recreation is also accepting permit applications to use the facility. There's no designated staff out there, so someone using the facility would have to pay a fee for staffing, for rental, and also for cleanup. There's still a question of whether we'll allow alcohol at events and how exactly how that will be used. There's a question of whether it should be under recreation or maybe BFRC. For now, we're going to lean toward keeping it under recreation, I think, is what we had discussed. Neighborhood events, some kids' birthday parties. And Lori Yarborough is going to reach out to Julia Copeland and come up with some guidance there, some guidelines on how we should use that. So our Charleston County Greenbelt subcommittee met a couple of weeks ago. They unanimously approved the Bradham track and Woodmere. The Woodmere track that application's been updated. Some good news. The beach company who owns the island and a body of water adjacent to the Woodmere tract has donated that property to us, which is valued at over $400,000. That's helped our Greenbelt application by showing that we have an almost 100% match, which is going to help our score for getting that Greenbelt money. So Fort Pemberton, we've received LCWF funds and we've accepted those. And they did require some deed restrictions to be placed on the property. We've presented the concept plans to the Greenbelt Advisory Board, and they've recommended for approval to the Charleston County Council Finance Committee. So WPAL Park is moving along. We've got a proposal underway. Consultants are working. The environmental survey is complete. We should have all survey work back within the next month. We'll schedule some additional community engagement that's going to drive the development of a conceptual plan. So we think late third quarter, early fourth quarter, we should have a fully vetted plan with construction documents ready, and we could be able to start that bidding process hopefully by the end of the year. So we got a staffing update. Parks has 116 filled positions of 160 budgeted, so it's about a 27% vacancy. There's been some promotions within. They're fairly steady from a net standpoint, both with parks and with recreation. Recreation's still kind of struggling with the part-time positions, but they've combined some part-time positions into full-time. And Lori had mentioned that the new pay plan has helped attract some new candidates, and we've got some applications in, so we're working on it. I think Lori Yarborough and Jason Kronsberg are doing a great job, and I appreciate their work. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing to vote on, though. Thank you.
I think those were all updates, correct?
Yes, sir, just
Information
updates.
only.
That's
Any
right.
questions or comments, Councilmember Shea?
Couple of questions regarding the Carl Richardson Park. Anybody who has not yet been out there, please go out. It is absolutely beautiful. You got a magnificent point of view from the Ashley River over to the peninsula part. It's just what a gift we have to the community. A couple questions, though, Mr. Chairman. That hideous abandoned blue building, is there any plans for the city to purchase that or demolish that building, or we know what the status is of that building? It's right across, and it's a terrible eyesore. I don't know, do we have any plans with that property?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We looked into that actually quite recently. It's in the county. It's not in the city, believe it or not. And Dan Riccio has reached out to county code enforcement, trying to help us with that regard. I can maybe report back to you a little more on it, but we did look into it.
Even exploring the idea of purchasing that property, tearing it down and adding some parking spots to it would be a huge help to that area. I mean, you've got there's a wonderful investment, and then you just see that building. It's just, it's terrible. The other question
If
is,
I owned it, I'd want to live there and look at that beautiful park.
yeah, I mean, it's goodness. The other question is that, are we proceeding with the markers? Help me with this, Councilmember Wayne. There was a doctor who came out of Asheville, Maryville area, and we had met out there to put some markers in commemoration of his accomplishments. So
I think the History Commission is working on that.
I don't know.
And I know Megas are working on that.
Yeah,
too.
I know it came before the History Commission, but I don't know if any progress with those markers. Okay. I just want to know the status of that, and if we've made any progress in that area.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for those questions. We'll try to follow up on those. I see Mr. Kronsberg over here. You want to respond?
Good evening. So the historical interpretation and the recognized neighborhood individuals is in works. It wasn't part of the original contract, so it's kind of coming in behind. So we're working on it. We're working with the consultant to design the display boards and then get the the History Commission paperwork pulled together so we can kind of keep moving that along.
One more question for you before you leave. I just thought about it. Are we putting up any signs directing people to this? You've got to know where to find this park, by the way. Are we putting up any signs, directional signs to the park?
That's the first that's come up. I don't know of any that are in progress. But it certainly could be a request.
I would just recommend, Mr. Mayor, that when you go down through Maryville, Asheville, unless you are familiar with the terrain out there, and I've been out there so many times, I've got it down pretty good. But it may be worthwhile if we start putting up some signs directing people how to get to the park. Same with Higgins Pier. It's unless you live there and understand around it, it may be worthwhile to explore some ideas about some directional signs out there. This is a suggestion.
It's a good suggestion. We make signs ourselves. We can do that. We'll put in a request for that. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Robbie here.
We'll
let him know.
Were there benches around the little play area for mothers and grandparents to sit on?
There's a couple benches there.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I went back. Yes, I didn't see any there.
I thought they were taking repairs. They may have feet and walk away.
I hope not, but hey, please check.
I'll look into it.
Yeah, thank you.
Check. All right, thanks for those follow-up and the questions. Next up is our License Committee, Councilmember Gregory.
Mr. Mayor and Council, the License Committee met on Monday, March 20th. And we had one item as new business. And it's basically rebranding and standardizing our provisions as it relates to the local revenue services. Our committee voted unanimously to move it forward, and I so move.
Any discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next up is our Committee on Public Works, Councilmember Waring.
Mr. Mayor, we didn't meet on Monday. It'll be quick. All actionable items passed unanimously. One of the things that this room would have been packed on, it's been a tremendous amount of work that's been done, is the ordinance C1, basically slab on grade. It's been a tremendous amount of work done with a lot of entities. And I just want to thank everybody who came together on this one. They know who they are, but it didn't come easy. How long has it been in works? 4 years? 3-4 years. And now it's coming to the point for the first reading of approval. And we have an echo in the room. So that tells you people were heard, changes were made, and great compromises are about to take place. I want to thank everybody. Instead of calling all the names, I would never call all the names because I'm gonna leave somebody out. So on that was approved. Mr. Fountain is gonna send out C2, small projects for 2023, bless you. The list is extensive. Every council district has been touched with these small projects that have been improvements. If you're in an area that needed those small improvements, you thank your stars that they're being done. And I thank Mr. Fountain and his staff and all involved with that because it's making a difference. With that, I request a motion to adopt the
Second.
Please note that the item B2 was deferred. However, the consideration for permanent encroachment along 3rd Avenue.
And one last thing, all on environmental services, all trash is being picked up on time, and nobody's actually having to work weekends to accomplishment. So that is a big victory. So thank Mr. O'Brien and Mr. Altop and team when you run into them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. All in, Councilmember Brady.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you to Councilmember Waring and the Public Works and Utilities Committee. Because I know my folks on Johns Island, this has been something that the slab on grade in 100-year floodplain has been something that they've been pushing for a while, and our mutual constituents with Councilmember Shealy, Councilmember Bowden, myself in the Church Creek area as well. So I greatly appreciate your leadership on this, and this should make a remarkable impact going forward as it kind of gets phased in for flood resiliency in the city, especially in vulnerable areas. And I should note that, Johns Island has many special protection areas under our new stormwater management plan. So this is going to be a great step forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions, Councilmember Appel?
I'm just going to be real quick. And, if you're just tuning in on YouTube or maybe following at home and you hear slab on grade, that might not immediately jump to your mind as something that you've heard about. So let me give a little bit of other context to this ordinance. We've heard people say ban, fill, and build, right? We've heard that. It's on bumper stickers, it's on social media, it's around. Banning fill and build is a slogan. It's not a policy. It's not an ordinance. It's not something that's well thought out. This ordinance that we are giving first reading to, that's the culmination of 4 years of hard work, is what banning fill and build looks like as a pragmatic, realistic, sound, balanced policy. And Councilman Waring's not going to name the names, but I'm going to give it a shot. When you have the Charleston Chamber of Commerce, the Home Builders Association, the Preservation Society, the Historic Charleston Foundation, the Coastal Conservation League, and the Southern Environmental Law Center, all in the same room together, working together, singing Kumbaya, that is a wonderful, wonderful achievement for this city. And I don't think we should let that go unnoticed. And hopefully this can be a model for future policy, future collaborative stakeholder work. I want to thank Dale Morris. Dale's back there. Dale has done a great job keeping this ball rolling and making sure that we get over to the finish line. And I had some folks from some of these groups reach out to me today. Do you think this ordinance is going to pass? Do you think we got the support on council? Like, they can't believe we're here, but here we are. And it's a great result. And I'm happy to be here. And this is the most significant step that I'm aware of, next to our stormwater manual that we've overhauled, to address the worst excesses of fill and make Charleston a leader in development and redevelopment in a manner that's consistent and harmonious with all that we know now about flooding and water and Dutch dialogues and things of that nature. So I just think this is a really great achievement we could all be proud of.
Thank you all for those comments. Councilmember Gregg.
I hate to spoil the mood here, but as you all know, I represent an area in the city that's a little bit different. My neighbors all live in slab on grade houses in the floodplain. 2 doors down from me, 3 doors down from me. They all live in slab on grade construction. I understand a lot of work's gone into this. I'm going to let you know I'm going to vote against it because, I've seen my neighbors' houses. They don't flood. We have a really good stormwater system on Daniel Island and in the Cainhoy Peninsula that works. Additionally, if you live in Berkeley County, and there are plenty of donut holes as you move up Clements Ferry Road on the Cainhoy Peninsula, they are going to continue to be able to build slab on grade houses. It's I view this as this is another reason why those folks in those donut holes are not going to annex into the city. So I'm going to vote against it. I appreciate all the work that's been done. I understand that I don't have the context of the work that's been done here for the last 4 years, but I didn't want to let you know why. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you. To note, I would thank Dale Morris, but also ask, isn't this like the only city in America that has now passed an ordinance of this type, or one of the few? Speaking of being a leader in this concept.
Thank you for the question.
As far as you know.
As far as I know, again, we did some research on this, as far as you know. So the city of Houston and the county in Harris County and in Texas, they adopted similar regulations, but they approached it in a different way. This is just So Matt Fountain deserves a lot of credit. There's a lot of work that went into this, and as Councilman Appel said, there you go, Councilman Appel said, this is a practical way to get at the problem. So I think other cities are watching what we're doing, and I think other cities may take inspiration from what you're about to do. So thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, Councilmember Saccharin.
Say anything, but I think Councilman Appel, like, these are the things, like, when you come to council, we just pass it, it gets done, we don't think about it, but you articulated this so well, like, people that's sitting at home that are complaining about all the issues with flooding and all this stuff, it's this stuff that gets passed. And I appreciate you mentioning the process, thanking Councilman Waring, and hopefully folks in our media report on these things, because this is the stuff that just flies by and then, has a tremendous impact on people's lives. So I just wanted to chime in with that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, without further ado, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. One nay. Councilmember Waring, did you have anything else to report? I know y'all spoke about the small project allocation. Okay, great, thank you. All right, next, our Committee on Ways.
Move for
and
approval.
Means.
Second,
I think as amended.
as amended.
And that includes the amendment to the transfer agreement.
Yes, second.
There you go. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, bills for second reading. We
Second.
have 13 items. Does anybody need to take any separately?
No.
Any discussion or questions on any of 1 through 13? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now for third
Second.
reading and ratification. Any questions or discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now we go back to our public hearings, number 3.
Second.
For the rezoning of 1776 and 1766 Ashley River Road. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? This is for second reading. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now for third reading of the same matter. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
So y'all hang tight for just a minute. I gotta sign these, and while I'm doing so, Madam Clerk has a little announcement she'd like to share with everyone.
So I just wanted to let everyone know that this Friday, March 31st at 11 in the council chamber, we'll be having a press conference announcing the artist for Vanessa Turner Maybank's portrait. For the council members who were here around the end of 2020, you might remember that when Vanessa retired, Councilmember Waring and the mayor announced that we would be having a portrait made of Vanessa. And so we'll be having a press conference announcing the artist this Friday. Councilmember Waring will be here, the mayor will be here, and we might have some other guests here as well. So just wanted to invite everyone.
Councilmember Saccharin.
Do we have a location for the portrait?
We haven't discussed it that I'm
Okay.
aware of.
I have an idea. We'll What, we need to get it painted first.
Anyone else would like to be recognized for about 30 seconds? Councilmember Waring?
Mr. Mayor, on this rare occasion, I'm speechless.
That I find hard to believe now.
I can go ahead and announce that the next regular meeting of City Council will be Tuesday, April 11th, 2023 at 5 p.m.
Exactly. And we're all done. Any further business come before us?
Move
this
to adjourn.
evening? Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.